I'm going to be done in a second, but I really sense that God, for a lot of you here tonight, wants to take you to that place of encounter. Maybe the team can come, but a few years ago, back when we were living in Adelaide, we had a youth camp, or a young adults camp actually. We just had probably one of the most greatest moves of God that we'd ever had in our youth ministry or young adult ministry at the time. By the end of this camp, we'd taken up offerings every meeting in the camp, which we'd never done before. In fact, we rocked up to the camp, and my pastor, Pastor Russell, said, I don't want you to prepare a song list. I'm not going to prepare any messages. We're just going to get up and begin to flow with whatever's happening. And I remember we got to the last Monday, the last morning of the camp. And so we decided that we'd, let a few people share some testimonies about what God had done, thinking there'd be 3 or 4. About 50 people get up and get out of their seat and stand in this line. But the incredible thing was that as person after person testified, God began to break out in the meeting and do even more miracles than what we'd already seen. And so rather than this line getting shorter, the line kind of began to get longer. As, people begin to share about financial miracles and stuff that they'd had. God would begin to speak to other people in the meeting. They'd get up and begin to write checks or get cash out of their wallet and go and bless people in the meeting. People were getting healed. It was crazy. So Pastor Russell said, look, we got to wrap this up. So why don't we meet at the church tonight? And we'll just kind of finish this off. 6 weeks later, we're still meeting together at the church every night, testifying about the miracles that God has been doing for 6 weeks. It was unbelievable. One night, I was there. I used to play keyboards in our worship team, lead worship and stuff. And one night, I watched a friend of mine at the altar have an encounter with God that, seriously, friends, I could see the encounter that he was having. And he came up to me after the meeting that night and he just said, Henry, he said, I just had the most incredible thing happen. So this guy's dad had walked out on him and his mum and his brother when he was about 5. And he'd really struggled his whole life to understand the father heart of God. How much a father could love him because his own father had let him down so horrendously. Yet as he stood there that night, the Holy Spirit embraced him and began to reveal this love like a father. And friends, I could see what was going on. But this was about 5 weeks into that whole journey, and I'd been playing every single night. Playing 5, 6, 7 hours at a time, playing worship. To be honest, I was really tired. My praise was a little dry. My worship was a little dry. As I drove home in the car that night, I just began to call out to God, and I said, God, it's not fair, God. And here I am, playing away, pouring myself out, creating a platform for others to have an encounter with you, but I'm kind of missing out myself. It was probably the most selfish little moment I've ever had in my life. And right there in my car, the most ridiculous thing happened. You ever been sitting in a room and not facing the door, but you just kind of know that someone's just walked in the room? You know what I'm talking about? Kind of that feeling? I'm sitting there in my car, and I get this feeling like someone is sitting next to me. I turn around, and there's obviously no one there. I keep driving. I'm thinking, man, I must be so tired, man. I'm just kind of entering into that state of delirium. They're going to lock me up in the hospital, so, I'm going crazy, man. And then again, the same thing happens. 3, 4 more times, I get this sense that someone's sitting in the car with me. Then all of a sudden, I hear this voice, and it's the Holy Spirit. He says, it's me. See, friends, because up until that point in my Christian walk, I always used to think that, the Holy Spirit was kind of this, mystical force out there, and we kind of have this funny way of, getting him to come and meet with us by going, blah, 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 or coming up with some sort of crazy tongue or whatever. But I never really understood the whole deal when Jesus left and said, I'm going to leave you someone who will be like a best friend, a comforter, someone who will walk through with you through everything. As I sat in the car, the Holy Spirit began to speak to me. I sat in that car and I went, Holy Spirit, I don't even know how to talk to you. Because all I understand you is there's some force out there. And he said, I just want you to talk to me like a friend. And I began to converse with the Holy Spirit. To be honest, friends, I didn't even know what I was doing at first. I said, I don't even know what to ask you. You know, I mean, he just said, ask me how I am. And I'm like, that's kind of weird, but okay, how are you? He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, well, I kind of figured that you wouldn't be anything else but good, seeing as you are God. But, you know, I just began to have this conversation. And, you know, friends, I got home to my house. It's about 12:30 at night. As I was just about to get out the car, Holy Spirit said this to me. He said, I want you to come around. I want you to open the door. And I want you to let me out. And then I want you to put your arm around me and walk to the front door. And who knows, right about then, I was like, Holy Spirit, it's nice to meet you. You know, how about you just stay in the car? I'll see you in the morning, hey? But see, friends, I knew that Holy Spirit wanted me to have an encounter. That I'd be able to look back and go, I experienced you in your house and beheld your glory. As I opened the door, I went around, and honestly, I felt like an absolute idiot. And I'm like, how tall is the Holy Spirit? I mean, it's just put my arm around him. And I'm walking to the door, and he says, I don't want you to go in. I want you to knock on the door and let your wife answer the door. Now, friends, it's 12:30 at night, okay? There's a few crazies that lived in our area at the time. Here I am, walking to the door, 12:30 at night. Oh, yeah, that's me. That's me, people. And I stand at the door. My poor wife, 12:30 at night. She's like, who is it? I'm like, honey, it's me. And she opens the door, friends. And she sees who's standing with me. And she falls on her face and begins to cry out to God. I said, honey, this is Holy Spirit. He wants to come and live with us and walk with us in every situation. You know, friends, my life has never been the same since. Because I had an encounter in the house of God. That in a hard time in my life, I began to reach out to God. And He came and met me where I was at. But He didn't meet me and leave me. He met with me. He put His arm around me. And He began to walk this journey. And I believe tonight, in the last few minutes that we've got together, that God is here. I sense His presence. I know you sense His presence. But I believe He wants you to have an encounter that's going to leave you changed. And you're going to walk out of this place different tonight.